Alright, what is up guys? Welcome back to another Zoids review. I am finally back with another HMM. I finally went into my backlog after, nearly 3 years of it being there, I think, and built the HMM Wild Liger. And you guys should be pretty familiar with the Wild Liger already. I've done at least 2 other videos on it for the original Japanese motorized version that came out in 2018, I believe, and then the English Hasbro motorized version, which came out in 2020, 2021, I want to say. And those are virtually identical, with the exception of the plastic is molded in an ever so slightly different color, and the English version comes with the actual character pilot of Arashi from the anime. So shortly after that, the HMM version was constructed and designed by the engineers over there at Kotobukiya. And this was one of the first entirely new molds for an HMM we had had in years. So this kit uses 0 parts from any other existing HMM. And like I said, it was the first time that they weren't just doing like a new iteration of a classic Zoid, or, we're going to do a new color or new parts onto an existing base. This was completely and totally entirely original, which, even though the Zoids Wild brand, as I've said in other videos, ended up being a bit of a flop, this did result in the Kotobukiya HMM line doing a lot more new things after this point in time, either by coincidence or directly as a response to this. But we started getting entirely new molds like the Redler and the Storm Sorter and the Koenig Wolf and things like that we had never gotten before. That weren't just, hey, let's take the exact same Shield Liger or Red Horn mold from a decade and a half ago and keep retooling it and releasing new variants and stuff like that. So that's what's cool about the HMM Wild Liger. I'm actually very surprised that they even made this. But unfortunately, the HMM line, as it pertains to the Zoids Wild Zoids, had a bit of a premature death, so to speak. So they only did 2 of these. They did the Wild Liger and the Fang Tiger, which I also have as in my backlog. There was an announcement for a Gill Raptor and the Geno Spino later down the road, but they canceled the HMMs for those even after the prototypes were revealed, which I think is a huge shame because I definitely would have loved to have seen the HMM Gill Raptor, but I guess they just decided that the market wasn't there for it because the Wild line was such a flop, and they decided to cease production on those from what we can tell, which, again, I think is a huge, huge shame. But as far as this, the HMM Wild Liger, which is going to be a little bit of an interesting piece of history in terms of Zoids and the Zoids Wild products specifically. It is a little bit of a curious case, and it will be a little bit of an interesting piece of history and Zoids culture as the years go on. And we look back on Zoids Wild as a thing of the past. The last time they tried to reboot the series, and it was met with a lukewarm response. Now, since then, I've been meaning to talk about this in other videos, but there actually are a lot of even newer, more interesting Zoids product lines coming out soon. And I think the 40th anniversary and maybe the choice to introduce the HMM line into other parts of the world helped out with this. But there's actually several new Zoids product lines on the way, but unsurprisingly, they do use almost exclusively the classic Zoids, like the Shield Liger, Command Wolf, Red Horn, Genosaur, stuff like that, and not these Zoids. But let's go ahead and talk about this guy. So in terms of the build complexity, this one's actually quite easy. In spite of the size of it, it is one of the large style box HMMs. This box style is comparable in size to, like I said, the Blade Liger, the Red Horn, the Genosaur, etc. But in terms of actual build complexity, it is much more simple than that. And I would argue actually has fewer pieces than that, although I'm not sure the exact piece count. This guy is pretty simple for one that requires a box this size, and it almost makes you wonder if they could have done something similar to the Saber Tiger box size instead for this guy. But really, really well engineered. I'll post some pictures of what the skeleton underneath looks like, because they kind of kept in line with the design sensibility of the motorized version by having you construct the Wild Zoid skeleton underneath, and then the aesthetic bits are just armor that goes on top of it, which is something that works really, really, really well for the Zoids Wild Zoids, and specifically the HMM version in the way that you construct them. There's also, just as you can tell, nearly 2 decades of good design sensibility when it came to this guy. So there are things like how I mentioned on, I think, the Blade Liger, where you are trying to push a pin through that's going to be part of the leg socket, and on the other side of it is one of those soft plastic kind of rubbery socket pieces that are so critical to the HMMs. But because of what side the piece goes in on, the pin is actively pushing the socket back out the way it came in. So it's kind of a bit of a flawed design there. This guy has something similar, but it's inverted the other way around. So the pin is going in the same direction that the socket is, and so it just keeps itself in there and doesn't force it back out the other way. And if that doesn't make any sense, you'll see what I'm talking about if you eventually get around to building it. But in terms of build complexity and engineering, like, it's quite simple, but it feels very intelligently designed. It does feel very smart the way they've gone about building this. The big thing, of course, most people are most excited about when it comes to the HMMs is not only having a nice complex build, but having something that really reimagines the details and the aesthetic choices of the original Zoid and really brings it to life. And I think they did a fantastic job of that with the Wild Liger here. So we'll go ahead and compare it a little bit to the motorized version, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So over here on the right is the original Japanese Takara Tomy motorized Wild Liger from the original Zoids Wild line. And over here on the left is the Hasbro motorized Wild Liger, which, like I said, are the exact identical mold, but this one has the rubber Arashi pilot, whereas this one has a generic clear pilot, and the color is slightly different. I illustrated this in the Hasbro video, where this one has a slightly colder, more pearl white almost to his armor, and then the blue is slightly lighter, and the red rubber caps are slightly more translucent and slightly darker red. It is also a little bit of a difference in the gold on the feet there, whereas this is a more yellowish gold. This is a little bit of a dirtier gold. And so that kind of begs the question of, where does the HMM fall in line? Which version is it more faithful to? And the answer is neither. So it has a little bit of both. I would say that the white is once again an even more different shade of white. And we are doing the most nerdy thing that any like toy collectors or model kit enthusiasts love to do, which is compare shades of colors and talk about color matching and like shades of white and whether or not this will yellow in the future. Like I love it. I love being such a huge nerd like this. So yeah, the HMM version is something in the middle. It's not exactly the same as either one. And then the blue is an even darker, more deeper, I would say almost royal blue, which I think actually looks the best out of the three. I very much prefer the color of the HMM version to both of the motorized versions. And then the same thing with the caps, which of course are not rubber on the HMM version. They are hard plastic. They are still quite translucent, but they are a richer red than the English Hasbro version. So that looks nicer. And then there's other colors added to kind of make it pop a little bit. So in the center of his weapon array up there is some gold and some gray to kind of break up the composition of that. And of course on the tail, there's like this little bladed bit on his tail, and it's gold on the HMM version, whereas it is just, it's just molded in the same gray plastic on the motorized version. There's bits of the feet as well, whereas the entire foot is just solid gold on the motorized version. There's bits in gray because this was made up of multiple pieces to create the same result on the HMM version. And then the skeleton underneath, I think I prefer the more black skeleton of the original Takara Tomy motorized version to the other two. I complimented the Hasbro version when it came out on having some silver in there to break up the composition, which I think does look good. But then the gray of the HMM version, I just wish it was a little bit darker, and it looks fine on its own, but when you see the comparison here, I just think the black kind of looks the best, although I bet you the gray does show the molded in detail quite a bit better. And I'll go ahead and move this guy off to the side. And the weapon, the sort of wild slash claw thingy on top, On the motorized version, when it goes through its walk cycle, the gears will eventually cycle the head down, and that will result in the weapon flipping forward like this. I've shown this off in the previous videos. So because the HMM version does not have any motor of any kind to speak of, this is all done manually. So you can sort of manually flip up the weapon forward, but consideration was actually taken into making sure there's enough room for this to happen. So there's actually several different points of articulation that work in tandem to make this happen. And they can also extend outward a little bit, which I think looks really cool. So just absolutely fantastic job on the weapon. It's very similar to, well, not quite sure what it's similar to, but each of the different blades on the weapons, I think it reminds me a little bit of like the Rev Raptor claws a little bit, how they're each on a peg inside the top there, and the middle one extends. I think maybe all three of them extend a little bit, maybe. The middle one does for sure. And the attachment part to where it sits on the back of the Wild Liger itself is also articulated. So you can get that at an angle and bring these down like so, because the motorized function and all the articulation there on the motorized version takes up so much room and so much engineering inside the Zoid that it compromises details. And so for the sake of posability and looking at, you know, nice details and everything, the HMM version does a really good job of sort of reimagining that. And I think it looks really, really cool. And I like how posable it is. The fins on his face are also articulated, and they just sort of free floated on the motorized version. They kind of flop back and forth, which I don't think works that great. But these are all on hinges. They can be moved individually. And while I don't really like how the bottom ones attach, I don't really care for the pins they use to put those in there, if the camera will focus. I think that looks kind of bad, and I tried to get them in as far as they would go. The overall silhouette of the face does look good, but I just don't like how those are attached. But I do think that it works out in terms of the overall like silhouette of the face, and I'll have them just kind of flopping around and free floating like on the motorized version. And then the Arashi pilot as well that this comes with is really cool, because again, this is the first time in years that we had a Kotobukiya HMM based off an anime character, and there's two different versions of his head that come with the parts for this kit. And this one has where it's got like the blue flame in his hair that gets electrified and everything when they're doing the wild blast thing or whatever. So I think that's pretty cool. And then it also comes with a big piece of translucent plastic they'll show off, which I cannot apply at this stage because it requires you take out one of his eyes, and the peg that his eye goes into gets replaced by the peg for this thing. But it's this giant piece of plastic that is meant to be like the wild blast effect on the Liger's eye as well, which I think would be a super cool way to display this guy, and I would love to have that on there, but it would require me to take his eye out, and I don't feel like doing that. Also, I love the eyes on this guy. I love the eyes on all the wild Zoids. I think that they just have so much character to them with the way that they have like definition to them like that. I've shown that off on the motorized one before. But these are nice and translucent and look really good. I hesitated in building this guy because I don't really know where I'm going to put him in my collection. I have a very finite space left for the remaining HMMs in my backlog. And this one and the Fang Tiger, I actually just don't know where they're going to go. But I will figure it out. And I'm almost done with my HMM backlog. I only have a few more kits to go. The next one I'm going to be building is definitely going to be the Geno Breaker. Although don't hold your breath on that video because I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. I just finished a major video for the main channel, which took me months to make, and is probably the best video I've ever made on YouTube, period. It's a big, long video essay on the main channel about the ethics of hobbies and game collecting. And then I've got family stuff going on right now that I'd rather not talk about. But I will get around to building the Geno Breaker at some point. But then after that, it's the Fang Tiger, the generic Genosaur, and I think just the Iron Kong Yeti, and that's it for my HMM backlog. I've got a bunch of Gundams and other kits and stuff like that I need to build as well. But I plan to do a video talking about these other product lines because I've been like way behind, not giving you guys the Zoids content that you want. And I want to talk about this other product line because it looks very interesting. It's a 1/100th scale line of articulated model kits. So it's going to be somewhere in the middle between the Modeler Spirit series and the HMMs. And I want to get at least a couple of those. I want to get maybe the Command Wolf and the Shield Liger or something. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll be taking a look at those soon and doing a video on it and giving you guys an idea of what I think. So thank you guys so much for watching, though. This has been the HMM Wild Liger. I do recommend this guy. He's not terribly hard to find, especially with the US allocations. My local store actually still has the Fang Tiger HMM. But yeah, if you guys are interested in picking this guy up, I do recommend it. He was a much shorter build than most HMMs of his size. He was probably about 6 hours. So yeah, I definitely recommend this guy. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.